Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to do an activity called Courageous Conversations. We're going to learn about nonviolent communication and how it can be used during difficult conversations. So before we get started, we're just going to start off with some introductions. We're going to share our name, pronouns, school, and grade level. So my name is Jimmy. I go by pronouns he, him, his, and I'm going to be a senior at Annandale High School.
Hi, I'm Sabla. I go by she, her, hers, and I'm going to be a senior at Robinson this coming school year.
Hi, my name is Deanna. I go by she, her, and I'm going to be a freshman at VCU this fall.
Hi, my name is Jada. I also go by she, her pronouns, and I'm going to be a junior at Woodson High School this fall.
So before we start the activity, I just wanted to remind everyone that this is a space where we practice self-compassion. And the concept of self-compassion, at least what it means to me, is that the compassion and way that you treat other people, you should apply that to how you treat yourself as well. I always like looking at this graphic because is this person hugging themselves through the mirror, because I think it's a good portrayal of what self-compassion means. Self-compassion is that concept of comforting and caring for yourself rather than judging and criticizing yourself. So I'm going to read some of these affirmations, and I just want everyone to think about these before we get started. So, I honor and support myself. I love and accept myself. I practice peace and patience. I am worthy of my own compassion and kindness. So I hope this sets the tone and established a safe environment for our activity today.
And as well, moving forward with this activity, and we hope as you move forward with your day, we just want to leave a little quote to keep in mind that we can't always answer or explain what's going on, but we can reflect on what we're experiencing together. And so hopefully this conversation model that we discussed in practice can help you navigate these kind of hard conversations.
So I'm going to introduce the activity. Sometimes when boundaries are crossed, we usually either respond in an angry or non-constructive way, or we just don't know how to respond or communicate our feelings at all. So this model is useful because it expresses our feelings and our values in a very clear way. So as you can see on the screen, it says, when I see, hear, feel blank, I feel blank because I need or value blank. Are you willing to, and then you write your statement of what you're willing to do or what someone else is willing.
All right, so now we're going to go through an example with this model. So here's our scenario. Imagine that your friend's birthday is coming up and all of them want to get together for a party. However, they do not plan on having any social distancing procedures in place, and you're going to be in a place with dozens of people who have not been in contact with each other. Naturally, you worry about your grandparents who you live with and for your own health. When you tell them that you can't come, they say that you're no fun. How do you communicate with them using this model? So everyone can take 2 minutes to complete your own responses using this little template and using the scenario that I just described.
So, does anyone want to share first?
I can go first. I wrote, when I see someone being unkind, I feel upset because I value respect. Are you willing to help me talk to them?
I can go next. I wrote, when I hear that I'm no fun, I feel like my concern for my family's health and my own health are not being respected because I value everyone's safety and well-being. Are you willing to give me a rain check this time so we can celebrate your birthday in a different way?
Oh, I like that because it's like you're making a compromise and you're saying that even if I can't come, that doesn't mean that I don't care about your birthday. Okay,
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
I can go next. When I hear my friends calling me no fun, I feel upset because I value my health and doing what I am comfortable with. Are you willing to step back and understand my situation?
So my response was using the model. When I see you guys celebrating without safety precautions, I feel unsafe because I need to take responsibility for the well-being of myself and the people who live with me who are at risk for COVID-19. Are you possibly willing to host a party with at least social distancing and not more than 10 people?
I also really like that because like you're providing an alternate plan because honestly, their plan isn't safe for everyone else there as well. So
Yeah, you're suggesting something that would be healthier for everyone, including you.
So now that we've used this conversation model, we're actually going to move on and do a variation of what we just did. So this communication model can also be very helpful when we're sorting out our own feelings about something. As you can see, this is basically the same model as we saw before, except with the last part of it says, I can blank. So you would use this conversation model not necessarily always when you're talking with someone else, but you can also use this when you're talking to yourself and you're reflecting about something that might be hard to process otherwise. Notice how the end says, I can blank. It's essentially a call to action, and that makes us feel like we have more control over community. It's essentially a call to action that makes us feel like we have more control over communicating our emotions in difficult situations.
One condition in which being able to communicate your emotions can be really important is when we're trying to confront social justice issues. Especially now, something that has been on many people's minds lately is the issue of police brutality and systemic racism in this country. I know from a personal experience that these feelings have been overwhelming at times and difficult to navigate. Something else that may be on your mind right now could be climate justice, such as the environmental situation we have facing our world, as well as those repercussions for climate change, or possibly even how LGBTQ plus people are treated in this country and worldwide. So today we're going to try to learn how can we use this conversation model to have a meaningful reflection of ourselves and how we can apply ourselves to confronting these issues. So please take just 2 minutes to write down your sentences using this model, similar to the previous activity. The topic of your sentences can be about one of the issues that we just talked about or something else that's been on your mind. You could even talk about how some of the struggles you have been facing personally since the pandemic has started and affected you. So let's spend some time to do the activity.
I'll put on some music again.
Drive your car down to the sea. All the while you build a scheme. Take her hand and walk on with her. sun is almost slipped away. Now it's gone and you're alone. In her eyes you see a gleam. Time has come for you to show your love. Make it.
So does anyone want to go first with this one?
I can go first. My example was when I see people acting in ways that unfairly exclude people from activities or conversations, I feel upset that the excluded person isn't being treated with as much respect because I value inclusion. I can do my best to make sure I include everyone I encounter so they know they are valued and they matter.
I really liked hearing that. That was cool.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks. It was definitely more broad of an idea, but I think it's something that affects a lot of people in school or at work or just in social situations. So,
Yeah, I
And
think
definitely.
in general, the idea of respect and inclusion can just really be applied to almost anything. So it makes sense that it would be a really broad statement. I guess I could share next. So when I feel like people define me with words that they don't fully understand, I can feel invisible or invaluable because I value parts of my identity that others would rather criticize. I can support people with similar struggles to create a more loving community.
I love that. And it shows that you really have confidence and you're secure and you like embrace who you are despite what kind of criticism other people might have. And I think that's really inspiring, especially for the last part of your statement. Like you can definitely help other people with that mindset.
Thank you for that, Stephanie.
Thank you. I do try to help when I can.
I can actually go next. I'll just read it. When I see Black people continuously getting oppressed by the systems in this country, I feel enraged because I value compassion in human life. I can spend my time donating to organizations that will help support this fight and work to amplify Black voices in whatever way that I can.
That was very powerful, Jimmy, especially during this time with all the police brutality and Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely. Very needed and can't be said enough.
Yeah.
All right, well, I will go next. I wrote, when I see discriminatory and hurtful comments online, whether it is for race, religion, or anything else, I feel frustrated because I value equality. I can speak up and promote why equality is so important to others.
It's good that you bring up online social injustice too, because a lot of it happens online these days too.
Yeah, especially with COVID, it's like the biggest way that things are produced.
Yeah, I feel like people really feel comfortable saying things like that because they can hide behind a screen.
I was just gonna add, like, there's definitely like you said about like hiding behind a screen. There's a lot of false confidence that people place in social media, and it allows them to do things that they would more easily regret, or they don't regret because they feel like there aren't consequences, or like they aren't hurting people.
So now we're going to move on to some discussion questions.
So our first question is, why is nonviolent communication important when talking to others? So I'm going to give my perspective on this first. I think nonviolent communication is really important because I like to say violence is never the option because it only makes things worse and it only makes people even more frustrated and enraged, and it can bring up a lot of worse things and emotions. Like people can say things that they don't mean, or it really just doesn't help anyone out.
Definitely. I think one of the biggest points of communicating is to try and resolve something or express your feelings, and doing so in a nonviolent way is really the most effective way, and otherwise you risk offending someone else or escalating the situation and not really getting anything done that you intended to do in the first place.
Yeah, I really agree with what both of you guys just said. And I'm sure that, well, I can speak for myself when I say that there have been a lot of times where I've wanted to respond with anger after someone has said something about me or did something. But at the end of the day, I think that when we use nonviolent communication, it just ends up being better for both people.
I feel like a lot of times, in comparison, violent communication is generally used to take something, whether that's power or abilities. Like it's usually some kind of there's like a power transaction involved when you're trying to be violent, when you're trying to kind of hold that anger on someone or express that. So a lot of times, though, it's much better when you can show and when there's an equal ground. It's so important to maintain that environment and nonviolent communication respects that. It respects that kind of environment where you can see each other like without having to take something back or try to take something from another person.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially you don't want to do anything that you might regret later on.
Yeah, I really like what you said about how when we use violent communication, we do it because we want something, like we want power or we want revenge with the situation or something.
When I think the most valuable thing that you would want to take would be, or you would want to have, is understanding from the other person. In my opinion, like if you use this nonviolent communication to really get your point across, you can, without escalating the situation, tell them how you feel, and they can at least like get some sort of better understanding instead of taking all the power and, as tempting as it is to burst out.
Yeah, that's a good point. So does anyone want to share why having self-reflection in a constructive way is really important? I guess we kind of touched on it a little before with like the power part. It's probably something more internal inside of you rather than the other person. They might have made you react or triggered something that made you have certain feelings. But does anyone want to elaborate more on that?
I think that especially when we read things on the news or if we're just overwhelmed with something that is a lot bigger than we are, it it feels like we have no control at all over the situation, and that's when we start getting overwhelmed and we start getting anxious. But when we think about it in a more constructive way and we take time to self-reflect on like why we're feeling like this and what can I do to help this, how can I do it while still taking care of my mental health, I think that that's when we feel more peace over the situation and we feel like we have more control over it.
Definitely. And I think another thing to bring up is when you self-reflect before an important conversation, it enables you to remain more calm and kind of prepare yourself for communicating in a way that's nonviolent. If you don't completely self-reflect before you try and say those things, it's even easier to slip into an angry response or, something that you might regret later. So I think self-reflection in a constructive way is important ultimately for communication with others.
Yeah, I think you said that really well.
Yeah, I really liked how you just kind of communicate that. That was really powerful. And I guess I also wanted to add that I feel like self-reflection, I think communication is so important is that it allows us to learn from our experiences and from other people. And I like to think sometimes that like life itself is like your experiences is kind of your greatest teacher, but you can't really learn from your experiences unless you take that time to reflect and to understand yourself and to understand your motives and where they come from and what you were doing and how you feel about that, whether it was wrong or right, what you want to accomplish when you communicate with other people. Like without that self-reflection, you can be very not only impulsive, but just not have complete understanding of what you want to say or what you want to have. And so you need that. You need that in order to learn from yourself as well as learn from other people.
Well said, Tibla. So our last question is, what steps can we take to become better communicators? Well, I would say there's a lot of different steps we can take. Does anyone else want to give this a shot?
I'd say definitely applying what we just practiced with the nonviolent communication. That would be one first step. I think what the second question addressed is try and self-reflect whenever you want to communicate. And what I want to add to it is that it's important to try and think about it from the other person's perspective so that you can better empathize and know how what you might say may affect them. And also be aware of the situation. Like if you're feeling upset already, or if they're feeling upset and you know that likely the conversation is not going to remain calm, then wait till you've both cooled off and you have a chance to effectively communicate.
Yeah, it's really good. It's also like important that you are also listening to the other person. And I liked how you said before about, you know, seeing the other side to things. And for some people, it can be really difficult at times. And in times, it is a good idea to see the other side. And at the same time, you can also see the other side, but still stick to your ground and not agree with everything the other person says. But what you do have to do is be okay with having different opinions than other people and be okay with not agreeing on every single thing.
I just kind of want to further emphasize what you said about how important it is to listen. So I think that kind of tends to be overlooked a lot when people try to like communicate themselves or talk to other people. But in reality, I really feel like the best way to communicate is to also know how to listen. Like you can't do one without the other. Because it's like, how do you even know what you're saying unless you listen to what's happening, unless you listen to the situation and what the person in front of you is trying to tell you.
It's a two-way street,
Go hand in hand.
what people say. Anything else on this last question?
I think we're good.
Thank you everybody for joining us for the Courageous Conversations activity. I hope you guys learned some skills on how to non-violently communicate or be more self-aware when you're trying to communicate. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.